MindGap Podcast.
Everybody, welcome to MindGap Podcast. I'm Doug, and Justin, as I promised, is out yet again, because he's out filming, which is super cool. But in his stead, I was like, who could possibly fill these shoes? These massive clown shoes that are Justin's. And there's none other than my wonderful brother, Dave Cochran. Dave, welcome back to the podcast.
I'm excited to be back. It's gotten a lot fancier. What's Justin filming? I have so many jokes, but I'm not going to.
I don't know the title of it, but it's like a 12-day shoot. So, and he's working as like an assistant to the assistant director. So, and
that's amazing, actually.
Yeah,
that is awesome. Good for him.
Yeah, I think one of the actors they got on, they had to shift their schedule because it was the dude. If you remember Karate Kid, the evil sensei, who was like, sweep the leg, Johnny.
Yeah.
That guy is in the movie, so which is kind of cool. So, yeah.
I go away from MindGap for 10 years, and all of a sudden Justin does cool stuff. We went from arguing about Jubilee and her mutant powers to now he's big time. Good for him. Good for him.
He still sticks to those guns, which is super cool. But super glad to have you back. We got some good stuff to talk about. But the first thing I want to do is I want to present you with a little scenario. We've all interviewed for jobs. We've all had embarrassing moments in jobs. I want to present you with a scenario. I want to kind of get your take on maybe what you'd do and how you'd feel in a situation. So imagine you are entering into the place where you're going to be interviewing, and you're all set, you're prepped, you've done all your mental preparation. You're like, I'm going to nail this. And there's like this staircase that comes down, and the woman who is the head of the organization is coming down to interview you, and she comes down halfway, and you do what anyone does. You rise and you go to meet her. And as you go to approach her up the stairs, she sort of sticks out her elbow like this, almost if you're listening, it's kind of like, they point out their elbow kind of like with a crook of their arm. And you kind of look at that and you're like, what do I do? What is this person asking me to do? Do I hook arms with her like we're going to go on a little waltz through the park? Or what? Do I give her an elbow bump? What would you do in that situation, Dave?
I think I've grown a little more open to the elbow bump. In my profession, I'm around kids all the time, and they're nasty, and so they're sick. So the elbow bump is a very common move for me. I don't know if I'd lead off with the elbow bump for that position, but since you and I were born and raised in what I consider what they call the Harvard of the Midwest, Kirksville, Missouri,
of course,
we would know. I would immediately know that she's a high society girl, and I would probably take her by the arm and so very awkward.
So you're like, cool, I will do that. You lock arms with her and you go to walk up the stairs, and she just sort of sits there and looks horrified. And it's like, she goes, what are you doing?
And I would say I rolled a 1 on my inside check. So I just went with it, They're
like, oh yeah, actually, I'm just a bit of a germaphobe, so I was just going for the old elbow bump. And you're like, cool. And they're like, yeah, follow me up to the room to continue on with the interview.
Have you ever had just an interview like you're that early on? You're like, yeah, this is over. Like I've lost this job.
I've had two. One I've told this story before, but it's one of my favorite ones because I was so naive. I was interning at a pizza place when I was in college, and I was nearing the end of my college career, and I was looking for a job, and I went to my boss, and I said, Rob, I sat down with him. I go, Rob, I think I'd like to work here. And he goes, okay. Any idea where you'd want to work? I was like, I'm not sure, but I think I'd like to work here in this building. And he was like, okay. He was so sweet. He was just like, oh, this poor dumb man is just like, didn't look at job postings, didn't submit a resume, whatever. I'm just like, hey man, good news for you. I'd like to work here. And he was like, okay. He was really nice. He's like, why don't you think about what you want to do and get back to me? And then, then nothing happened. So there's that one.
Part of me admires that though. I do. I hire people at my job, and I think, and I'm not, this isn't a generational thing, but I do feel like having somebody that wants something like that would catch me so off guard because that's not what I get now. I have a hard time getting people to call me back when they apply for jobs because they're terrified of phone conversations. So somebody with the courage to like come in and be like, you know what? But also, why would you want to work at that pizza place, Doug?
Well, it was the corporate office.
Okay, so I take your story as you were at Pizza Hut. And this, so in my head, you're at Pizza and asking the guy like, "I want to work at this Pizza." That's how I took it. And it was the
corporate office. It was the guy who was the head of training. And
I imagine Rob is the local manager of the Pizza Hut. And he's like, "Okay, Doug, you can deliver."
So 50% stupid blind confidence, and then what was lacking was like, "Hey, listen, I want to work here, and here's what I can provide for you. I noticed that you guys are lacking in X, Y, and Z. I would love if you could give me an opportunity to maybe fill in that role, or I've learned so much doing X, Y, and Z that I was just like, I'm ready to be hired, sir. I would like employment, and I have chosen your place of business. Do you agree?" It did not work out, and that's okay. We learned. The second one, I was interviewing, I can't remember what it was for. I think it was, I can't remember the company, but I essentially was like, I was having this conversation, and this woman was like, this is kind of like, we really like you in like a sales sort of job. I was like, yeah, it's not really what I'm in for. What I really like to do is like, I was describing all the stuff that I'm good at and blah, blah, blah. She just goes, "It sounds like the sales role that we have open." And I was just like, oh no, like there's this weird pause. And I think we both knew they were just like, okay, you want something from me that I don't want. And I want something from you that you're not going to give me. And we just both, it was just like this weird nonverbal, like, right. Cool. Well, thank you for your time, and good day to you, madam. How about you? Do you have anything fun in an interview?
I think the funniest interview I had was the guy who interviewed me. This was for a head position in education. And I drove there in the middle of the, like, late at night, had to meet before the board. And it was such a small district. Everybody had nicknames on the board. Like, I don't remember the guy's actual name. We're pretending it was Doug. And he's like, "Don't call me Doug, call me Gator," and that was his nickname. And I think I actually thought I got the job. Well, then the superintendent calls me and goes, "You did great, man. They fired me after you left," because it was before a board meeting. So they had a closed session. They fired him and replaced him with the guy that he had fired for the job I just interviewed for. And he goes, "Good luck." And I never heard from him again. And I remember I got off the phone. I was like, I guess I'll play PlayStation. But
I guess that sucks.
Yeah, but he was so nonchalant about it. Like, "I just got fired. Really liked your interview throw." I was like, all right. So I walked into some interviews where I knew right away I didn't want to work in that place or that district, whether it was philosophically or just something really caught me out, like a big red flag. There's some management stuff at this point in my life where I'm pretty dead set. And if you walk into that, and I know we're gonna start talking about like life lessons that weren't true, but one thing I would say is true is having a bad job, and I think this will resonate with you, is worse. If you settle for a job you're gonna be miserable at, you're gonna be miserable every day. I know, like you said, I know that is close to your heart in your 20s, but no, interview wise, usually in my business, right away if it's gonna be a good match or not.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
I love the audacity by you though. I kind of like that though. I still like the idea that you did that at a Pizza Hut. Like, I'm going to be a delivery driver for you.
Like, listen, I want to run your corporate training operations. It's like, okay. No, I agree with that. Like, there were so many times where I desperately wanted a job, even though I knew in the back of my mind it wasn't good. There was this one for ASCAP, which was the American Society of Composers, Artists, and Producers. And there was basically like an opportunity to get into the music industry, but basically
was that the music investigator guy?
I did do the music investigator. It was for that company, but that was just like that was like contract job sort of stuff. I wanted to be the licensing guy for one of the Chicago areas. Basically what I would have done was gone to bars and restaurants that haven't paid for the licenses and essentially like be a mob enforcer and be like, "Hey, listen, you haven't paid your licenses." Right? "Hey, listen, I know you're playing music here and you haven't licensed. You need to pay up or else, And the guy was saying, "Hey, how do you feel about walking into a room and people not liking you?" And I'm like, "It's no big deal." In the back of my mind, I'm like, that sucks. Like, I don't want to be the guy that's like, "Oh,
that isn't
no, the ASCAP guy's here," but I'm like, "Hey, I'm a big guy. I would have been miserable driving around the city, going to these places being like, I'm the worst salesman ever. I'm like, hey man, you got to pay. They'd be like, no. I'm like, all right, well, I tried. Sorry guys. They're not going to do it.
That is a horrible job. Horrible job.
Yeah, it's no good. It's no good. It was, definitely one of those things where I was like, nah. I wanted it because the money at the time sounded amazing, but I would have been miserable. So,
have you ever interviewed somebody yourself? Have you ever done that?
I have interviewed some people. Yes, I have done that sort of stuff. So I don't particularly enjoy it.
Me neither.
But yeah, it's one of those things where I'm just like, I'm like, I'm rooting for
people
them.
lose jobs right away with me. I've had that before too, where they come in and I had a guy walk in and be like, I think everything you do sucks. I'm going to fix it. And I'm like, I love the attitude, but I'm not, no. And a lot of that. I've had some people come in that genuinely didn't do any research for the job, and I can kind of tell. So then I had fun with them because I think it's funny because I'm not going to tell them what the job is at that point. We're going to play this game. And I had a guy that was through his follow-up questions trying to figure out what I was interviewing him for. And it was pretty funny. He didn't get the job, but yeah.
I think the funniest thing I had happen, it wasn't funny at the time. It's funny now. It was when I was a trainer and I was doing new hire onboarding, and we had a huge class of people that were coming through, and we were very much sticklers about like, hey, you got to be back at this time in this room and whatever. And I was just like, it was like day 1 or day 2, and I was surveying the room. I'm like, there's a guy missing. There's a guy that's in here and he's not here and I don't know where he is. So I start going on. At this point, I'm so locked in with what I'm doing. I'm turning into a detective. I'm like, where is this guy? And I start going around, and there is where we were hosting this. There was like a break room area that had like pool table, ping pong table, shuffleboard, all that sort of stuff. And there's also TVs in there. And I was like, I wonder, is he in there? So I go in there and I look. I don't see anything. I start going to all different places. And then I'm like, I'm going to go back in there again. I open the door and I just sort of sit and I wait and I look, and there is a big bar top counter there with like elevated stool seating. And this guy pops up from the other side of the thing, because I also noticed that the TV had turned to soccer. And I knew this guy was a soccer fan, and he had popped up. He had skipped out of training so he could watch a soccer match, and I busted him red-handed. And I was like, you got to go. And he was fired that day. And I remember walking out of the building, and he was waiting for me in the lobby. And he was like, hey, man. He was like trying to plead with me. I was like, dude, no, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. I saw what you did. He said, it's not what you think. I'm like, you were hiding in the break room watching soccer. What else is there to say, man? You're out. You got to go. I was like, busted.
You didn't feel bad at all. You didn't feel a little bit guilty.
No. I was like, man, that's on you, dude. That's all your choice. Like, that's nothing to do with me whatsoever. So
that can be
all of you. I was like, to all you listening and watching, like, let us know. What was did you have an interview experience where you really, pooped the bed? Did you have, were you interviewing someone who just completely went off the rails and didn't meet what they were supposed to? Let us know in those comments, youtube.com/MindGap podcast. Check the description, link in the description to our Discord. You can be part of the conversation there. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to know more about that stuff. So, all right. Dave, are you ready to get onto the meat?
Sure.
Dave, are you ready for the meat?
I'm always ready for the meat.
That's what I'm talking about. That's why.
That's a clip that will come back to haunt me.
Are you ready for the meat? Hell yeah. All right. So this week we're talking about things pop culture taught us that we had to unlearn as adults. You probably are thinking, what does that mean, Doug? And it's like, you know what I'm talking about. All these things that you watch in movies, you read in books, you see on TV shows that sort of like play out a certain way, and you're like, that's what real life is. And then you start living life and you're like, wait a minute, that's not how it goes. So growing up in this sense kind of meant that like you got to learn really what reality is. So we're going to take you through a couple of different lessons and discuss what it means and what we think it means and how it affected us and how we had to unlearn it. The first one, I think, probably the hardest hitting one for me, which is hard work always gets rewarded. So we are always under the impression, especially I mean, growing up was like, hey man, you work hard, you're going to be successful. And that seems like a great sentiment, right? Because you don't want to be lazy. You want to put your best foot forward. You want to work hard. But not only that, we see that in things like Rocky, right? If you train hard enough, the system's going to notice you. You know, they're like, oh yeah, look at this guy. He's working really hard. You know, you've got Rudy, which everyone knows my long-standing issues with Rudy. Persistence magically overrides institutional barriers. You know,
you're still brandishing that axe for Rudy.
Yo, dude, it's
poor
it's
Samwise. He gets his one movie where he's the lead role.
Dude, it was that movie. If you rewatch it nowadays, you could easily edit that film to be a horror film, a psychological horror. Because the dude that just shows up outside the gates of Notre Dame and just hangs out there, and they're like, "Hey man, what are you doing?" He's like, "I really want to go here," and they're like, "You can't. You don't have the grades." He's like, "I beg to differ." You're like, "Okay."
Did you ever consider that you're the Rudy to that pizza guy?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, no, listen. I'll tell you what, Rudy, maxed out effort, man. That guy had max effort. Like, I will do whatever it takes. He had minimal talent, and that's the unfortunate multiplier that kept him from all that sort of stuff. Also sucks that movie's based on a lie. So the guy that wrote it,
I think that's
Rudy,
true from what I read. Yeah.
The real life Rudy really did everything he could to get that film made, and it was chock full of lies. And,
worked out for him though.
Yeah, kinda. I guess he made a movie, so I guess that's a win. But
I'm sure you got paid a little bit.
All the people that were in that movie that he wrote it about and lied about don't like him, so there's that much. But yeah, I mean, that movie, like, on its surface, it's like, it's inspiring. Like, look at this guy; he's working so hard, and he finally gets on the practice squad for this Notre Dame team. And man, if he could just play in a game where they're beating the crap out of this other team so bad, maybe they'll put in the D team for him to play for just one play.
I think you and I started with the sports stories because we come from a sports family. I don't know how much you've talked about your sports background in your show, but our father's obviously very active in sports, and we both did that. And I hate to be this guy. In my experience, people that are physically talented do better at sports, and hard work does matter to a degree, but I'm going to quote Dad a little bit in this. Like, if you don't have the legs, you don't have the legs. You know what I mean? I can train as long as I want, but I'm not going to win a marathon in the Olympics. So I will ask this though. Do you think hard work, it doesn't get rewarded? Do you think it gets noticed though? Is that like a cultural value that we've tried to convince ourselves as the American people that, like, because I work with some guys that work hard and get so much positive feedback. That's a big part of their personal identity. And they like getting recognized for that. Do you think it's a cultural thing with Americans, or?
I think there is an element that's been instilled into us that, like, if you work hard enough, everything's going to be okay. And I think that's part of the lie that, unfortunately, because that's half of the equation, right? Let's get a little corporate on you. I've talked about this before. There's a book called Strength Finders, and part of the opening story actually talks about Rudy, which is why I loved it so much. There's a multiplier, right, between like 1 in 5 on effort and 1 in 5 on talent. And they use Rudy as an example where, like, he gets a 5 out of 5 on effort, but he gets like a 2 out of 5 on talent. He's just not that talented. So his multiplier is 10. It's like, now do Joe Montana, right? Guy's got 5 out of 5 talent, 5 out of 5 work ethic. His multiplier is 25. Like, that is just, which is kind of disheartening, because it's like, there's a situation where you're like, hey man, I love doing this thing that I do. It's my best. It's my passion. It's whatever. It's like, that's cool. Go do your thing. Just know at some point you may hit a wall, because there's a talent modifier on there that, there's only so much you can do. I mean, and it is what it is. And if you're happy, go do it, go be it. But I think there's sometimes this illusion that's like, I've seen it with people who stream. They're like, I stream every single day and my numbers aren't growing. And I don't understand what the point is. It's like, I don't know. Is the content you do enjoyable? Are you an enjoyable personality? Do you have that engaging element to it? Do you create clips and send those out on the regular? Do you partner with people? Is the market saturated full of that sort of stuff? I don't know. But there's a point where hard work can absolutely, I think that's like, in a lot of ways, baseline for a lot of industries. You better be working your butt off. But then there's luck. There is those other elements that's like, cool. I know there's a lot of hardworking actors, a lot of hardworking musicians, but there's a lot of hardworking corporate American people out there busting their butts. I've worked with tons of people that work their butt off, and it is what it is, because also we live in a society where nepotism exists also. So,
100%. I think, and I can't believe I'm going to be the optimist one here. I do think we should strive toward a society where hard work does get rewarded.
Of course.
I think, in my line of work, that is something we try to instill in kids. And I think the reason we do it isn't so much for, cultural stuff, more of that's the only way they're going to overcome anything. Because I've got some kids, like you said, if you do that multiplier, they come from nothing. And if they don't work hard, I don't know, outside of luck, I don't know what's going to come into their life to pull them out. What's tough is I do feel like I am feeding them even a bigger line. Take when you and I grew up, for example, in the 90s. I'm not saying the 90s were perfect. There was that feeling that if you did work hard and you were in the right industry, you could succeed. I don't think kids this day, my experience, feel that way based on their experience the last decade. So I think the hard work thing gets tougher. Because I've noticed that with a lot of my students, they struggle with that concept because just they don't see it replicated, I think, necessarily that much. I don't know if we have a lot of movies that are really pushing that culture. Now to think about it. I'm going through pop
the
culture.
90s movies were a very particular style of that. I mean, Rudy came out in the 90s. You got, that stuff where there was that mentality. And honestly, that was within reach for a lot of people. And I just don't think that's the case anymore. Because listen, I love a meritocracy, man. It warms my heart to the core. And if it's practiced as it is, and we all can be like, that person's good. That person, like, you see someone get something, you're like, yeah, obviously they're killing it. But that doesn't happen all the time.
No, it does not.
It's tough. A lot of systems just don't care how hard you're trying. They just don't. And that's unfortunate.
Question for you. How do you, in doing this podcast, have you noticed impact? Like if you put more clips out, if you are on social media more, have you seen like feedback like that has made you think that maybe hard work does matter, or is a lot of it just luck, timing, culture?
It's ups and downs. I've gone through stints where I put out a bunch of stuff, and it's a lot of work to do that and to get no responses or no views. I'm kind of like, cool, noted. Then I'm not going to work as hard because it's like, what's the point? Because it's an awful lot of stuff. But at my core, I definitely always want I want to make sure that I do, if I'm really into something, I want to, and someone has given me a responsibility, I want to do it to the best of my ability. I always try to do that. But there's a lot of pop culture that we grew up with that was, sometimes the villains win just because they have the better funding, man. That's just how it goes. So,
And I don't want to turn this into Doug and Dave therapy, but we had a dad who did work super hard. No one could ever argue that our dad wasn't a psychotic worker. And Doug and I never saw him really. Like he did all that hard work for an entity that I didn't see in our house or when we came home every day. So I look at it and I'm like, I don't know, not to get negative, but like, was it worth it? You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question, because I also had the same thoughts where I'm just like, at the end of the day, I'm going to be dying and I'm going to look back and I'm going to be like, boy, I sure wish I would have gotten that email. Ugh. I only could have just done that email just right. Ugh.
And there's something that's admirable about it on one level, but you never think like, there's probably something unhealthy with that too,
Yeah, it also feels like a lie because it's like that's what they want you to do, to pour your life and soul into it, and then when you're gone, they just put out a requisition for someone to replace you. So, which is
on this uplifting episode of MindGap podcast.
Well, you know what? Let's take it to a better place. The second lesson: love fixes everything and is always obvious, right? We see that in a lot of these rom-coms. I mean, come on, let's go back to some fun 90s ones like You've Got Mail, Notting Hill, Love Actually.
Some of those are pretty creepy, actually. Like, if you look at them, like, pretty horrifying implications.
I love bringing up You've Got Mail because Jill's such a book nerd. And, I brought this up the other night. She goes, man, the fact that Meg Ryan, who had her cute, adorable little independent bookstore, and this asshole just puts her out of business with this giant big box thing, and they get together. She goes, never in a million years. I was like, yeah, that's true, but because that is like destiny matters more than communication with your partner.
Well, and I know, once again, those movies only show like the first 3 days they're together. They never show 10 years down the road when things get serious,
They conveniently end once they get together. I one of my favorite ones was How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, I think it was.
That's a terrible movie. Terrible movie.
Yeah, right. A whole relationship based on lies, and they get together at the end. I'm like, there's no way that's going to work.
Super healthy. Yeah.
No way. No way. And then you also have like How I Met Your Mother, which boy, you go back and rewatch that now. That show is problematic. Justin and I talked about that last time.
It has not
aged
aged well. It has not aged well.
It is not aged well. It's just persistence eventually works. It's like, I mean, no, that's not, sometimes, no means no. Let's not, deal with that. And then, Friends, it's not a show I've ever been super into, but, the idea is just that, you have these chaotic relationships that still end happily. And you look at that, it's obviously super entertaining to see these people in these hijinks. But if you put yourself in that in a real world situation, you'd be like, I don't want to be around these people. This is insane. Like, my life is crazy enough as it is. I want to go home and live a normal life. I don't want to have to deal with these shenanigans from these people all the time. It's crazy,
Do you have a friend who, you'll never say this to them, obviously, but you can tell they just didn't want to be alone with who they ended up with?
I think that's a lot of people, honestly.
Well, I think that is a lot more at that, but they're so terrified of alone. I'll just say for everybody listening, I've become a longtime bachelor, and it's not like I don't get lonely sometimes, but for the most part, I'm generally pretty happy. I'm not saying that I don't know. I don't think it's a competition, but I think we are so terrified of being alone a lot of times. I've seen in my job where, because when things go wrong in those relationships and with unhealthy love, usually impacts the kid and ends up coming into my line of work. But yeah, I've seen some couples in my line of work where I'm like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? I'm trying to think of some historical stuff. Oh, you've got the
Helen of Troy. That's
Helen of Troy.
One, right?
Yeah. That didn't work out well for anybody. Everybody died.
No. Hey, I'm going to steal your wife and we're going to fight a war over it.
Yeah. And then, yeah. I'm trying to think about this love one. This might be the most unrealistic one you have on here.
I agree.
Grand gestures fix emotional damage. If you show up and do the stuff in movies, I don't know a modern girl is going to be like, that's my guy. You're just going to, oh my God, the cringe factor.
Dude, can you imagine that? Just like, standing outside someone's window with a boombox playing their favorite song. I mean, if you do that in Florida, you're going to get shot, like they're just going to be like, get off my lawn, That's
a bold play. I'll say that. That's a bold one. You're going all in on that move.
Is it romantic? Of course it's romantic, but it's one of those things where, like, I know you want to do a grand gesture to Jill, she will punch you in the stomach. She does not like grand gestures and stuff like that. That's not how she rolls. It depends on the person. And so the problem with that sort of stuff is people watch this and are like, oh, it's so romantic. It's so cool. What if I do that? And then talk about an embarrassing moment, right? Imagine that let's modernize it. You get like a Bluetooth speaker and you get out your phone and you're just like playing some dubstep or whatever it is.
They're not even going to get the reference. That's the problem. We do that. Yeah, like, why is this guy? That's too deep of a cut for the kids.
I guess they're just like sending a Spotify link to a song, and then they just like are FaceTiming.
No. It would be a short of a song. They wouldn't even listen to the whole song.
A 30-second. Yeah. It would be them sending a TikTok of themselves to the song, looking at them and having tears come down their eyes.
Oh my Lord. Well, hey, I'll go back to positive, Dave. I've seen a lot of good examples of where I think love has made a big difference. I'm going to use you and Jill for example. I think you two have been wonderful for each other. I think the fact that where you're at in your life is probably a big part of the partnership you formed with her. And I have a couple of really close guy friends that I've noticed they developed those but they're not the way they're portrayed in the movies. It's one of my best guy friends. They always leave out the part where you have to go to the bathroom at some point. People get sick. People have bad days. People don't always look like supermodels. But yeah, I go back to you and Jill. I just see you guys watch each other's back, support each other, be there through the good times and the bads. And I would argue that I think it's probably helped you.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I constantly talk about how much Jill has made me a better person. And part of it too is that boils down to, like, it's a partnership, right? Because that's the stuff that I think gets left out. A lot of these things you focus on the great honeymoon energy sort of stuff. But a lot of this is just being like, hey, what does this person need? Like, I noticed that, Jill's coffee maker is running low on water. I'm just going to fill it up for her, so when she comes back, it's just like, cool. You can just make coffee without having to take that second to do that. Or like putting away dishes, or just like, I'm going to vacuum today, just finding things to make her life easier, because life's tough, man. And the home is our sanctuary. So let's make this, let's make this a good thing. And I, going back to what you originally said, I think there is definitely a big disconnect between wanting someone versus being good together, because that is a huge thing. And I mean, you see it all over the place on Reddit and everywhere. People are like, am I overreacting for had this text exchange? And you're like, you guys should not be together. Like, you should not. This is terrifying. Go and it's too easy to fall into those things. But they're like, but I don't want to be alone. I'm like, I know.
Modern dating has been. I'm terrible at it. I think the way we grew up, where we had to actually we sound like old people now, but we actually had to use real phones, call them, and actually have conversations with people.
Sometimes you'd call and you'd get like the older brother
or the
dad.
Father. The dad was the worst.
Dad. Yeah, I had a girlfriend in junior high who I'd call and the brother would be like, "Who is this?" I'm like, "Doug," and he'd hang up, and I'd be like, "Well, I guess I tried."
And I'm not saying I hate it when guys pine for the old days, but I was like, well, everyone was also really pretty awful to people that didn't conform to the Kirksville standards, That's me being politically correct on the podcast. But I think for me, the modern technological way people meet, I actually find that harder. I'm not, I don't have any, maybe if Justin was here, he has game. I do not. I can't pull out a text message and say something suave. And it's just I don't use I use full sentences, so I sound like a robot because that's how I'm used to talking. And I don't know, I just don't know how a lot of these modern kids do it. I wish them the best, but it would be horrific trying to read into what people are saying, and then I don't know.
I hate that. Well, it's like that scene from Hot Tub Time Machine where the guy.
I love that movie actually. That guy's
like hitting on that girl, and he's like, "So how can I find you?" He's like, "Can I call you?" She's like, "No, I'm just gonna be out." He's like, "Well, how will I find you?" She's like, "You're gonna have to find me." And he's like, "That sounds exhausting."
Yeah,
it's like that's how it was. You get in the car, it's like, let's hit the 3 major spots in our town to see if maybe someone's hanging out there, and maybe you get it, maybe you don't. So
do you feel like that lessons as not necessarily damaging? Do you feel that one's worse than the hardworking one we talked about? Or does it
I feel like the hardworking one was harder on me because I fully bought into it. Whereas this one I saw through that early on where I was like, I would watch this romantic comedy stuff. I'd be like, that's not real life. I figured that one out pretty early. It does, I think, unfortunately prey on the idea that if you're not in a relationship, maybe there's something wrong with you, which is not true.
I struggle with that. I struggle with that a little bit. I think I think I come to terms with it, but yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. It's again, you watch this stuff as purely entertainment. You're like, that's entertaining, but we take these are the modern day mythology that we take with us. We're like, oh yeah, so that makes it tough to sometimes deconstruct.
Deeper into that one is the nice guy wins in the end. I'm not saying that doesn't usually happen. That's no guarantee that you being nice has any guarantee that you'll get somebody. No. And I'm not saying you should. I also think people misinterpret nice guy too. So,
right. Yeah. Those are, again, overly simplified to fit into an hour and 30 minutes to be sold to the largest population possible on a minimum budget to make the most.
Do they make rom-coms anymore outside of Lifetime movies or
I mean, that stuff exists. I mean, I think they have stuff on Netflix, and there's different things now where
there are.
There's the reality, there's the Love Island and Love is Blind and stuff like that.
That's healthy. That's healthy stuff right there.
Which I would argue way worse because it's pretending to be real and it's not.
I work with somebody that likes Love After Lockup or something like that. It seems like it's the most messed up concept, but she's obsessed with it.
Yeah. So let's go on to the third lesson, which is the lone genius, the chosen one, Because let's face it, we're the hero of our own story. We always are. I don't think anyone goes, I'm the villain. I don't think. Have you met anyone who's like, no, I'm the villain in my story?
I think if they do, I'm not making light of it. If they have mental health issues, I think that's a pretty big red flag. If like, yeah, I'm a horrible person.
I would say that's the polar opposite of what I did when I wanted a job. You just come in and you're like, hey, man, I'm the villain of my own story. I'm like, hey, kudos to you for admitting that. Also, get out.
This is a bit of a segue and really trashy. I've went down this horrible lit RPG rabbit hole the last year, which is just I'm ashamed. But this trope is every single lit RPG book I ever read. If you're the protagonist from this, you're basically an isekai hero. And I'll be honest, there's something kind of addictive about it. It's dumb, and then part of my brain's like, this is ridiculous, but you kind of like it. You know what I mean?
Oh, you root for it. You love it.
It's hard not to like it. Yeah.
It's hard not to root for a hero in those situations, but the classic ones, of course, most anime, you got so many anime ones where you're like that. You're like, I'm on board. I want to see this guy just like kick butt, take names. But of course your classics, your Harry Potters, right? Oh, it's the chosen one. There's a prophecy. He's the boy who survived. You got Star Wars, the Skywalkers, Destiny. You got The Matrix. You're the one.
That's a good one.
You know?
That's a good one. Yeah.
You're the one. Again, like I said, anime protagonist. Good Will Hunting is a kind of an interesting one too. Oh, brilliance solves everything eventually. You know, so the problem with this is when everyone thinks they're the one, you have a lot of people out there that are problematic in that regard.
You're speaking my language. This is what I deal with on a daily basis for my work.
Mhm.
Is everybody is the main character, and they're being taught by people who are the main characters. So yeah. This is the. I guess leads into it. So did you notice a decline in teamwork in corporate world where you worked, or is that more of a struggle than it used to be, or do you feel like?
No, not in my experience. A lot of what I do requires a lot of teamwork and at least collaboration in some creative elements and things like that. So like there's a part where it's like someone hands me the things. I'm like, cool, I'm going to do what I do really well, which is like edit videos, make podcasts and things like that. But I'll collaborate with them because I'm not the subject matter expert. So I'll be like, cool, what do you want this to be about? What points do you want people to, when they walk away from this, what are they learning? Because I'm going to drive that point home. But then once they hand over to me, I'm like, cool, I'm going to take my creative liberties to make this the way that I want. So there's definitely a lot of collaboration there. I've definitely been in some environments where people play politics and it just doesn't end well. Thankfully, I haven't been in a lot of that. And when I see that, I'm like, gross. And I'm not here for that. But I think it's interesting. The idea, it's not interesting. Maybe it's more the idea. Cause like, again, you see these movies, you see these shows, you're like, oh, that's just an average guy. And look at him. Look at the guy from My Hero Academia. He was just a nobody, but look at him. All Might gave him his power and look at him go. He's working hard. I could be that guy. That kind of feeds into the work hard. You know, you're going to get where you need to go. Same thing with like Demon Slayer, right? That guy's like, I got to learn how to breathe so I can do all this sort of stuff. And it gives you, inspires you to be better. But, you know,
no one's
coming to look for you, unfortunately.
I have a hard time reading this one because I think, especially in our current world we live in, there is something kind of hopeful about maybe I can overcome. What I've noticed, to go back to number one, if you don't find some way to weaponize that talent, I met a lot of talented people that work at the pizza place you couldn't get a job at, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So I think, I don't know, this is another one that I think is pretty modern. And I don't know if you and I grew up with this. I don't think we grew up with the idea of you being the sole person. I think we did a lot more teamwork. If you work hard and don't question authority, we were kind of programmed to believe in the meritocracy.
Yeah,
I feel like this one's a little new.
Yeah, I think you're right. Because I think of like a lot of the movies we watched, like Indiana Jones, you know, some Star Wars one, like obviously it was more like, oh, this is the hero. They have plot armor. They're obviously going to win.
I think we watched more hyper masculine stuff.
Of course.
That's what we kind of came up with. Yeah.
Your diehards, you know,
great movie.
Predators,
unbelievable movie.
You know,
yeah.
Your clear and present dangers, you know,
I don't rewatch that one a lot. That may shock you, but yeah.
That one's sad. That's sad. True Lies, you know,
you talked about unhealthy relationships, but
yeah, right.
I definitely don't want to delve into politics, but every time I think about clear presentation and that stuff, there's always those parts of the movies that are like, we got it to the newspapers. Those bad guys are going to pay. And I'm like, that's dated. That's not how this works.
I know.
Turn on the news.
I don't still have it. I was doing a name that clip with Justin. I took it out here, unfortunately. And it was that scene from Clear and Present Danger where Harrison Ford's like, how dare you, sir? He's like, how dare you walk into my office? How dare and bark at me like some junkyard dog? I am the president of the United States. I was like, hey, there we go. Look at that. Wasn't that a fun time?
If you ever want to feel dated, just watch The West Wing, man. Like you watch that, like, this is a fun alternate timeline that will never.
Boy, we were really hopeful, weren't we? That was great.
Or honestly, go further back. Star Trek. A lot of the earlier Star Trek stuff, super hopeful. And we will overcome our differences through compromise and collaboration. We're like, that's some weak stuff, you know.
Like, nah, we're more like Warhammer 40K. Foreshadowing. But yeah, no, I think what we were watching was definitely, there were some elements of like there's a prophecy and so on and so forth, but I definitely got to the point where I can't remember exactly when it happened, where I'm like, whenever there's a story about, oh, it's been foretold that this person will come, I'm like, I'm not interested, like, because then that's kind of what I enjoyed about the Matrix in a lot of ways, was Neo was dealing with the fact of like, I don't believe in fate. Like, I don't believe in that. I believe I'm in charge of my own path, and I will forge ahead accordingly based on that. And that's what made that interesting. But that's still surrounded by the fact that, like, in this massive system, this person, this computer programmer, has been chosen to be the one that's going to set us free. And there's something inspiring about there. Like, well, maybe that's me. And then you watch American Idol and everyone goes up there like, I'm the best singer in my town. And it's like, oh no.
I think I would probably defend the Matrix a little bit, because I think what I liked about it was, you're right, everything you said fits, but they were also trying to say that, like, for us to overcome corporate or oligarchy or a lot of the more, I don't know, autocratic forces in our society, it has to start with somebody, and it has to start with one person saying that. And I think the Matrix did that trope better than everybody else. And I think deep down inside as Americans, we want to believe that, because we do have that individualistic society. But unfortunately, I have some people that work for me that are just waiting for someone to notice that they're super talented. And I'm like, you kind of got to go out there and get it. You know that better than anybody else with your career. Yeah. Like, there aren't a lot of people sitting around being like, you know what? I like you.
I just wish someone would come across my path and I'd be like, you're the one. You are the chosen one. And we want to believe that, but it's unfortunately not the case. I hate to say it. You're not special.
Oh man, but anime's gotten so bad about it, though, that I am starting to struggle to maintain interest in a lot of those properties, because I don't relate to it as much anymore, you know?
Yeah.
We grew up from watching the Ninja Turtles and Teamwork and Cowabunga. So
right. Absolutely. So let's move on to our next one, which is violence, sarcasm, and emotional detachments are strengths. This was a lot of things.
This is you and I, me growing up in Kirksville. That's the title of my Kirksville part.
I mean, honestly, we were kind of already foreshadowing this. Batman. Yeah. Here we go. You know, you got untreated trauma. Yeah. You know, Batman's like, oh, my parents died. I have a lot of money. I'm going to beat people up because the law is corrupt, which I'm like, I get it. But also, I don't know if that's really being a hero, but cool, I guess. You know, James Bond, you know, like, I'm emotionally unavailable, you know, but it's like, okay, cool. I guess he's good at killing people. You know, House MD, that was a big one, right? This guy's like, I'm a big butthole. It's like, well, he's intelligent, so I guess he's allowed to do that. It's like, okay. Most 90s action heroes, you know, again, Die Hard. There's really, that movie's about this guy having trouble with his marriage because he's struggling with his wife being more successful than him. You know, that's what the core of this movie is.
And to distract himself, he commits murder, you know, so.
Right. And he goes out there and he gets in a fight with her because he's like, I can't believe this and whatever. Again, like most, you know, Rambo, although that wasn't really 90s, but still he bled into the 90s. Terminator, RoboCop.
They're rebooting Rambo, though.
Sylvester Stallone doing it?
New guy.
Oh, I was like, Sylvester Stallone, I'm like, come on, man, pack it in. But,
my fear is we're one step closer to the Die Hard remake that's coming someday. And that's whatever the next seal on hell would be, a Die Hard remake for me, I think. Or like Goonies, or Goonies 2. I think that would.
I've heard them talking about Goonies forever.
That's one of my Ragnarok is on its way. Why would you make a sequel to Goonies?
Just let it go, man.
Let it go.
We get tidbits of it, and all. Stranger Things is kind of Goonies. Super 8 was kind of Goonies. Like there's a lot of them. Just, you know,
any action movie after Die Hard is Die Hard in a different place. But my nightmare fuel with Goonies is that some of them are probably not doing well financially. They're like, I just need to, you know, you've got the Hey You Guys coming back for like a cameo, and then like all the surviving villains get out of jail somewhere.
Dude, I don't know how you solve for sloth. Yeah. Because if you watch
you can't do that in this day and age.
People, there are adults who have not seen Goonies, and I'm like, I need you to watch it and give me your honest reaction to it, because you must be blown away by
what you can get away with.
By just being like, what? Like, how is this the thing? Again, another clip I played was just, again, I just played the audio. It was Sloth like getting Chunk and hugging him and kissing him. It sounds horrible. When you watch, you're like, what is that? He's just like, and then Chunk's going, you're like, what is this? It's like, oh, this is Sloth, and he loves Chunk. You know, it's cool.
And that's the old movie style where the bad guys actually kill people and are kind of scary.
Oh my God. Yeah, that was also like, they were going to put Chunk's hand in a blender. That's where they're trying to get him to talk. They threw it. They're like, literally going to put his hand in a blender. And I'm like, wow. I didn't realize that when I was a kid. I'm like, okay, this is getting kind of serious. Okie dokie.
So Gremlins is coming. Sorry. You know that's coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what? I can see that being a bad TV show.
Yeah.
I can see that. On Stars or something.
Yeah. And also, again, you got Wolverine, right? This grumpy dude, grumbling all the time. You're like, God, he's such a badass. He's always just mad all the time.
Sorry. Bad. The way you said that was funny.
He's just a badass because he's mad. He's afraid to let anybody in. He's afraid to be emotionally available. That makes him cool.
I thought I shouldn't go this far. The way they've done he's the most homoerotic superhero in Marvel's. No judgment, but even the new Deadpool movie, I'm like, people like themselves some Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. What's funny is in the comics,
how can you not?
I'm going to be this guy. Wolverine's got way more depth. Yes, he is that berserker, but he also like protects his family, cares about everybody at X Mansion. He's actually like a really good teammate for the X-Men. And I think, gosh, you got into the X-Men conversation. I do wish Jefferson was here for this. This would be fun. But I think in the movies that what they missed is like that relationship between Cyclops and Wolverine, because they can't have two badasses for some reason. Like they can only have Wolverine. And I'm like, Cyclops is pretty freaking badass too. He's the leader of the X-Men, But I wonder if, let's see, inside thing, I wonder if they made it today, if like Cyclops would be done like Captain America was, you know what I mean? Because when I first said in Captain America, I was like, ooh, this could be silly. But they played it earnest, and that's kind of how Cyclops, Scott Summers is a pretty earnest guy, and I think might be popular nowadays.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that's very possible. But the idea of taking any sort of cues from that to being like, well, if I'm emotionally available, that makes me strong. It's like, no, actually, having high emotional intelligence is probably one of the better qualities you can have in a human being. And sarcasm is not communication. It can be funny, but it can't be your main source of communication.
I've gone too hard in the sarcasm. Yeah, I have. I know I have. Do you feel like this is the most pertinent with our current timeline? Like this one right here?
I think we're dealing with the effects of that.
I think we really are. Well, I think my generation,
a lot of characters that just kept stuff in and didn't share. And it's like, well, look at that guy. He's creating so much violence. He's so cool. It's like, he's violent because he doesn't know how to express his emotions.
Do you think we're going to get like when James Bond comes out, they're going to do traditional Bond, right? They're not going to all of a sudden be like, I don't want to get political on this, but they're not going to change Bond that much. Do you?
I don't know. That depends. Depends on how that, because I also don't know if you can do traditional Bond. I don't know if that works, like.
I'd love to see them try. It'd be hilarious.
Right?
They just
we're going to go more the Sean Connery.
City Sweetie's been cast as the Bond girl for the next Bond movie. And it's in the Caribbean,
Yeah, right. Well, I want to get to some listener submissions here because I threw this out to our YouTube folks as well as our Discord, and I basically was like, which pop culture lesson did you have to unlearn from the hardest as an adult? The poll I put in our Discord, the people had some great things to say, but it was basically a split between I was supposed to be special and being detached and sarcastic equals strength. And then on YouTube, they said the one was hard work always gets rewarded. Was the top voted one on that one. But some of the folks in the Discord, Noah said, dang, deep topic. But the idea of being special for sure truly was a tough pill to swallow, that not everyone is special. In fact, most people aren't. And when it comes to success, it truly is mostly luck / trial and error. I genuinely struggled with it when I realized I'm not the anointed ones. And if I want to find success, I do, in fact, have to work my ass off because it isn't just going to happen. Ultimately, we all come into the world the same and we all leave it the same. Some people just get born into particular privilege, and then there's the rest of us kind of ties in with the hard work and being rewarded too.
You said that was by Noah?
That was by Noah, yeah.
You know what, Noah? You're special, man. Coming from me. One of these days, they're going to know.
Slotty says, I need an all of the above kind of, like all of these was a trial. Missing from the list, adults have their shit together.
Yes, that's a huge one.
People who work in offices are smart and savvy and definitely not some of the most idiotic people you'll meet. Yeah, that was definitely one like, oh, adults know what's going on, and then you become an adult. You're like, oh, what?
It's alarming. It's alarming to think, yeah.
Yeah. And Amelia says, as someone who uses sarcasm and humor to diffuse awkward situations, I firmly believe that being detached / sarcastic equals strength. In nearly every relationship, especially romantic close ones, I use detachment / sarcasm to appear superior to others. This happened from high school until my early 30s. The emptiness during my alone time reflecting on how I acted didn't make me strong. It made me feel lonely and unloved for a long time. I forget when the change happened, but I'm not as sarcastic or detached as I used to be, and I learned that vulnerability and asking for help is true strength because you've identified that you're human and therefore have limitations that others can help you exceed.
Well said.
That's some deep stuff. And then Tint says adults are just children with responsibilities. I was like, yeah, I totally agree. So let us know what you think on these lessons. Are there any other ones out there that you picked up that you're like, oh yeah, I watched this in pop culture movies and everything like that, and then you got to live your life and be like, oh no, that wasn't true at all. In fact, I learned this lesson. Let us know. Hit us up in our Discord. Link is in the description. YouTube.com/MindGap podcast. Leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you. But now it's that time once again where we go to game time. And I've got a very special game for my brother. You all have heard me talk from time to time about a little thing known as Warhammer 40K. And where I learned most of it, where I got inspired to learn most about it, is from this guy right here, Mr. Dave.
Was that really the one that infected you? Did I infect you with Warhammer 40K?
100%. You were the one that got me into this.
That is
it
so
all started
hard.
way back from Dawn of War 1. You're like, play this game. I'm like, I don't know what this is. I remember playing it. I'm like, all right, that seems cool. But little over little, as you slowly get introduced to the lore, you're like, it's pretty goddamn cool, this thing. And I want to check it out. And then slowly over time, it's just become part of my life, and I've enjoyed it. But what we're doing today is we want to test your knowledge, Dave. I'm going to read you some statements, and you're going to have to tell me, is this fact or fiction?
Oh, no.
And some of this may be nuanced. I don't know. We'll have to find out. So some of these are canon. Some of these are not.
I'll do my best.
Dave,
I'll do my best.
I believe in you.
I do like some 40,000 lore. I think we could go on a 2-hour rant about Warhammer. So
we could probably do more than that, honestly. Yep. That'd be great. All right. Here comes your first one.
I'm ready.
Here's the statement. Reboot Gilliman is the most successful Primarch.
By GW,
for those of you who don't know, a Primarch is the super badass of a particular Space Marine chapter. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, you can't even, like, to open the door. So those of you that don't know Warhammer 40,000, it is the biggest barrier entry, I think, to any IP out there. It's worth it if you can get past it. But the initial, like, I just need you to bear with me. There's space magic and demon, and guys have chainsaw swords. I think GW, the company that makes Warhammer, thinks that he is. They brought him back to life, and they've had him. I would say that in the lore, him having stepped in for the Emperor right now, in the current, I'm such a dork. He got me.
No, this is why we're doing it,
I know.
brother.
In the current timeline, he's actually kind of acting as the Emperor. And he's basically trying to single-handedly lead the Imperium back from disaster. Yeah, I'd say he is. I mean, you could try to argue Horus, but I feel like Horus getting completely obliterated. And then if you ever read the Horus Heresy books, Horus repented at the end. And I think probably Reboot, yeah. I'm trying to think who else you could argue. It's got to be him or Horus.
What I'm hearing fact.
Yes, I'd go fact on that.
And that, brother, is true. It is, in fact, true. Praise be to the Emperor.
So well done. Yeah, so he's alive, running the Imperium, and deeply unhappy. So that would make him the most successful.
he is probably one of the coolest Primarchs, so now with the lore that's updated him, he's pretty interesting. Not all the Primarchs.
All right.
Sorry. Got me on Primarch.
No, it's cool because I got more I got to get through. So here we go. Here's the next one. Horus was the first Primarch to openly turn to chaos.
I thought that was
fact.
I thought that was Logar. I thought it was Logar. Logar. The whoever the head of the word bearers. Is that Logar? I think that is. I think technically it was him.
Aurelian.
I don't know if he openly rebelled, but he was the first one to truly get corrupted by chaos. And he got corrupted by, they'd be some mad at the Warhammer community. Gosh darn it, what's his name? But he was a word bearer that took the shape of somebody else. And he's considered like the cause of all problems. I'd probably say Lothar. Logar or Lothar, whichever his name is. The word bearer Primarch is the one I would say was the first one.
You are correct. Logar Aurelian, brother.
Well done. Horus was corrupted by Lorgar. Mm-hmm. You would say he might be the first one to openly present himself to chaos.
I'm going to see who corrupted Logar 40K. I can't remember his name.
Lorgar was the first one to actually turn to chaos and then start to sow the seeds of the Horus heresy.
Erebus, Erebus.
That's right.
Is the cause of most problems in Warhammer 40,000.
There you go. All right, here we go. Next one. This is about the Imperium. I want to get your insight on this one. See if you think this is fact or fiction. The Imperium of Man is intentionally structured to be inefficient as a safeguard against rebellion. Is that fact or is that fiction?
This is another one of those nuanced ones. I'm going to say fiction on this one. I don't think this is true. I think the Imperium, if it could be efficient, it would. I think its size as an entity probably keeps them from falling apart. No, I'd say this one's fiction. I'm going to go with that one.
I honestly don't know the right answer on this one because I saw it argued both ways. But the immense inefficiency, stifling bureaucracy, and extreme, often contradictory fragmentation of the Imperium of Man structure are intentionally maintained as a safeguard to prevent mass rebellion. That's what one thing said. I heard some people obviously in the comments being like, giving examples of someone's like, yeah, we're going to build a rebellion. It's like, cool. Well, who owns the communications? Who owns the ability to travel through astropathic means and all this sort of stuff? It's all owned by the Imperium. So you could argue in some sense that they don't want to have someone come up to quick ascension. So possibly it's there to prevent that. But, I don't know. It's hard to say.
I don't think people that are listening understand how big 40K is. We're talking millions of worlds that are under the control of the Imperium.
Trillions of people.
Yeah, it's just insane. And so I think the inefficiencies are just, the Emperor set up a system now without him in charge. You could probably argue, did the Emperor want an inefficient system as opposed to a republic or a democracy? The Imperium is a very horrible entity if anybody gets into 40K. And some people, I've heard them argue, that try to say they're the good guys. I'm like, maybe the Tau, but there's not a lot of good guys in 40K. Maybe the Tau.
All right, let's go to the next one. The Primarch, Angron, was doomed no matter what. Is that fact or fiction?
Oh, he was found leading a slave rebellion on the planet that he was found out by the Emperor, and they were going to lose. They already had the butcher's nails implanted in his head, and if the Emperor wouldn't have pulled him, he wanted to die with his rebellion. He is probably I don't want to say he's the most tragic, but he's the most like, well, obviously he's going to go bad because you pulled him out in the middle of his rebellion, and he had to watch all of his friends die. That's one of those decisions the Emperor made that I think you're looking at him like, you realize this is pretty dumb, right? And then that gets into the whole Magnus the Red didn't do anything wrong either. But I'd say, I think he was probably the most screwed.
That plus the butcher nails. I think the butcher's nails are really what did it. In case you're wondering what that is, essentially it's this implant that they put into their brain that will dig into their skull and their nervous system that sends them into a rage, and you can't take it out without killing them.
And the only moment of peace they have is after they kill somebody. There's a brief moment of like euphoria, and it doesn't last long. Like we're talking like 30 seconds. I read a book where a corn berserker that still had him. It actually told it from his point of view, and he had just got done killing. And for like 1 minute, he actually talked about how he actually felt calm and normal, but then the nails dug back in. It was maybe a minute apiece. Yeah.
Brutal. All right, let's talk about the Mechanicus. So, the cult Mechanicus officially recognizes the Emperor as an aspect of the Omnissiah, the physical manifestation or avatar of the machine god in the material world. Is that fact or is that fiction?
Some do. Publicly, they do. Privately, a lot of them do not. But publicly, for the Alliance, I think with Mars, that's like their PR campaign. I'm sure some of them do, but if you actually look, most of them don't. Most of the cult of Mars, I don't think deifies the Emperor like privately. So
no, I think that's pretty accurate. The theological tenet was established during the Treaty of Mars to align their ancient techno religion with the Imperium. So it seems like it was like, we'll compromise.
Yep.
Sure.
Well,
sure we will, but they'll say that so they can be on good terms. But
that's one of the only factions that the Emperor went and negotiated with. They didn't just punch him in the face. In return, they got to do whatever they wanted. They're actually pretty. If you actually read the lore, they don't have nearly the restrictions that almost anybody else does. They don't actually have to tithe. I don't think they actually have to they get a sweet deal. They're actually kind of independent, allied. And as a result, though, they have to provide weapons for the Imperium at all times. But they kind of got a sweet deal compared to everybody else.
Yeah. All right. I got another good one here for you. One of your favorites. The Primarch, Conrad Kurz, believed he was right. Is that fact or fiction that he believed he was right?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's your best one so far.
Mm-hmm.
So
Conrad Kurz was one of the Primarchs who rebelled, and he had the ability to see into the future.
And
so he rebelled, knowing that he could see into the future. He still believed that he was right, is what the statement is.
I think, ooh, man, this is your best one. I'm actually stumped on this one. I think he initially thought he was right, and then I think post heresy, because he foresaw an assassin coming, I think he let it happen because he knew he was wrong. That would probably be my nuanced. He thought at first, and when he realized not necessarily wrong, but he regretted what he did, I think he let the assassin kill him. That's kind of my homebrew, because he could have stopped that assassin at any time. He just let himself die. He actually let this guy run up and cut his head off. I think he felt guilty, or whatever he was capable of emotionally. He was a pretty messed up dude. And that's always been my headcanon. I don't know if GW's ever officially decided. What do you think?
Oh, I think it's the answer to this was that it's correct. It's a fact that he knew he was right, which also made it scary because he was able to see, he's like, nah, this is the right path. So I don't know. It's tough. I like the idea of him maybe being like, I'm on board, and then regretting it.
I think if you read
also, I think he hated being able to see the future too. I think that haunted him. So I think he was also welcoming death. So
a lot of the guys that rebelled against the Emperor in the books weren't really like joining chaos at first. They genuinely didn't agree with some of the stuff the Emperor did. So I don't think Cruz necessarily was like full on board with like, yeah, we're going to worship chaos gods and be cultists. So I think there was a lot more of that went on the rebel side. And if you read some of the, there's a couple of Black Legion books where, yeah, those guys like use chaos, but they really just want to overthrow the Imperium. They don't go like sacrifice babies and that stuff. They just don't agree. They believe in the warrior culture. But it's interesting. Conrad Cruz, man, that's a dark dude. You get into him and who's the Salamander's Primarch?
Oh yeah. Dang it.
Nice guy. I about called him Voltron, but it's not Voltron. Vulcan. He had a rough time with Cruz. Can't talk about that on a family friendly podcast,
no,
but
we cannot. All right, I got a couple more for you. All right, next one. Let's talk about Xenos. The Imperium, on rare occasions, has formerly allied with alien races. Is that true? Or is that fact? Or is that fiction?
Temporarily. The most recent one in the lore is they actually took a timeout with the Tau over a border dispute to fight Tyranids. They've also taken timeouts with Eldar many times to deal with Chaos or Dark Eldar. Those alliances are never permanent, though. They're always like situational. I don't know if they've ever formed an official, like usually with the Tau, if they don't have anybody else to fight, the Imperium will go punch them in the face. But I would say short-term alliances. Yeah.
That is
not very often, though.
You mentioned the Eldar, the Tau, and actually there was a recorded one where they actually did a short alliance with the Necrons briefly to fight off some Tyranids.
Wasn't there one where they teamed up with, hold on, did the Imperium, I thought there was one where they teamed up with Chaos for a second against like the Tyranids.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm
Tyranids seem to be a kind of like a rallying factor for a lot of that sort of stuff. We're like, we got to deal with this, man, because
the War of the Beast. Okay. The Iron Warriors worked with the Black Templars and Fist Exemplar against the Orcs. Yeah, that's the War of the Beast. You've never read that. That stuff is crazy. It's like the greatest orc wog ever. Yeah, Tyranid hive fleets. They've agreed not to shoot against each other when it gets Tyranids. That's how bad the Tyranids are. If the Chaos worshiping guys that sold their soul to kill you are like, yeah, okay, I don't want to get eaten, so yeah.
All right, I got one more for you here. I think this one's going to sum it up really well. Here we go. Final statement. There is no objective moral good faction in Warhammer 40K.
No, there is not. No. I think there are some good people. That is
correct.
And there's some good characters and good people, but for the most part, 40K is a grimdark. I would say, I almost want to say nihilistic, because it's definitely written like the Imperium's lost. Because this cycle has happened every time where an organization or species gets in charge, they fall apart. And I think the Tower ascended if it wasn't a company for profit, and the Imperium is probably on the way out. Maybe some Eldar you could try to argue, but they only care about themselves. Kaphias Kane, he's like the only good guy I know of, you know who he is. That's about it. Yeah, pretty dark setting.
Pretty dark, but it's cool as hell, man. It's so cool.
Are you excited for the TV show if it ever gets made?
I would love to. I'd love for it to get made. I'm definitely curious. I'd love to see what they do with it. I think that would be cool. Dave, I think you absolutely killed this. So well done.
Oh, man. Thank you. Warhammer I can talk about. Yeah, Warhammer's my thing.
If you're a Warhammer nerd, let us know how you did. Did you get those? Do you have any beef? Did I get any wrong with my answers? I'm all ears.
If you get real fans, somebody there will say Magnus the Red did nothing wrong.
That was one of the ones on the list, and I was like, I'm gonna leave that one off.
And if that pops up in your Discord, you got some true Warhammer fans, because there's a really strong argument that Magnus did nothing wrong. So
yeah, then I'm you know what? I'm kind of split on that one. So, but it's good stuff. It's always fun to talk about that. All right, Dave. What a pleasure. Let's real quick before we go. Is there anything you'd like to recommend for people to watch, read, listen to? Anything that you've been consuming that you're like, man, people got to check this out?
I really love the Night of the Seven Kingdoms, that new Game of Thrones show. I think it's been phenomenal. I was a guy who did not like how Game of Thrones ended. I think this show's amazing. I highly recommend it. Probably that and the Fallout show, but I'm a big sucker for Fallout. But Night of the Seven Kingdoms, if you have HBO subscription, check it out.
That's awesome.
How about you?
I'm going to recommend, there is this album by Goldfinger came out in 2020.
That's awesome.
They did a deluxe version in 2022 called Never Look Back. I prefer the deluxe version because they have a couple of extra songs on there that they actually did covers of their own songs with some like other people, like they did Here in My Bedroom with Avril Lavigne, and it sounds awesome. And some other stuff. And they also have some unreleased stuff on there. I just thought about them, and I've just, for the past, like, I think 4 or 5 months, I've just been in a wonderful rabbit hole with Goldfinger again. And that album in particular has just been like absolutely sustaining me. It's been awesome. So check that out wherever you listen to music. It's excellent, and I highly recommend it.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Well, gang, thanks again for hanging out with us. As always, check us out, youtube.com/MindGap podcast. Hit the like and subscribe button. It's free, doesn't cost you anything, and it supports us. And leave us a comment on anything we've talked about during the show. We'd love to hear your thoughts on anything we've talked about. Check the link in the description for links to our Discord, links to our Patreon, and links to our merch at Redbubble. And if you're listening to this on your audio platform of choice, wherever that is, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all that other good stuff, please rate and review. We'd appreciate it. And also, do us a solid and share us around. Let people know that we exist, because the more you share, the more the people can learn about us, and the more we can spread like the orcs or the Tyranids or chaos. However you want to say it, it's all good. They're all only heroes in the Warhammer 40K universe. But we appreciate you guys. We appreciate the support. And more importantly, Dave, thank you for taking the time to hang out with me on this podcast.
It was amazing. I've always enjoyed this podcast. How many episodes you up to now?
This is episode 526.
That is amazing. Congratulations to you and Justin, by the way. I mean it. You guys have done an amazing job with this, and I look forward to when Justin comes back, and I'm super pumped that he's getting to do some pretty cool stuff in pop culture.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Well, Dave, thank you. Listeners, viewers, thank you. And you all have a dandy effing week.
MindGap Podcast.